Like when Diane and pasta pie.
Whenever I first got the secular thing,
Okay.
it upside down.
So,
Boom.
Yeah, I'll do the best I can.
hi guys. Okay, so first things first, this is gospel and connection appointments. So, raise your hand if you've done a gospel or connection appointment before. How about just gospel? Do just gospel. Okay, how about connection? Okay, cool. I just wanted to see who had done them and who hadn't. So, knowing that we're going to talk about, a lot of y'all know about this, some of y'all may be like, what? Knowing that, what do you want to get out of this session? Like, what is like 3 things that y'all want to get out of this session? And you can, I'm going to write them down, so throw them out.
Better way to handle connection appointments. And
Okay.
instead of just winging it.
Yeah, instead of winging it.
Hey, Nick, can we get one more of this?
Here. Pass that to Trent.
What else?
I don't know if this counts as part of this, but I think it would be really cool to talk about, like, say, like, you know, we have our gospel appointment, and then, like, they accept Christ, or, like, something like that. Like, now what?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel
Follow
like
it
we get-
kind of after
yeah,
their
follow
response.
What's the best way to handle that?
After they respond with yes.
Yeah. This is part I thought through.
Yeah. I just thought about sharing with them. I don't know what's next.
They'd actually say yes.
Okay, so what else? Is there anything else that y'all can think
What if they respond no?
of? Okay. How to handle no's.
How to awkwardly get out of the conversation. and not,
that's cool.
I guess well, I'm just kidding.
bye.
If they say yes.
I don't know how to do that. Okay.
I have a question, and I know it's kind of deals with this. What if you're meeting with somebody and they already have a relationship with Christ, and you need to, like, they're interested in discipleship,
Okay.
but you're not the person to do that? How do you go
Okay,
about setting them
yeah.
up with someone else?
Ready?
Trade off.
Yeah.
Bump them.
Well,
I'm not gonna help
that's
you.
good. Keep doing good. Keep doing
I'm gonna put how do I bump so that way we can kind of, I'll explain that if you don't know what that language is. Okay, great. So we have some things we want to work through. Better way to handle connection appointments instead of just winging it. How, oh, now they respond with yes. What do I do next? Sorry. And then how to handle no's, and they already have a relationship. How do I bump them? Cool. So on your piece of paper, Megan, here, I saw that you did a new one. We're just gonna kind of go through this, and it's gonna be our guide. So I made this one so I could teach this to y'all, but this is for you to use as a guide. It's also for you if you're like meeting with somebody who's not on leadership team, who's not gonna go through this training. This is a guide for you to train them, okay? So as we go through this, take notes as if you're going to train somebody on this. So I don't want you to just think it's just for you. We're also training, I'm training you to train others, okay? So one, these are some disclaimers. This paper is only a tool. It's not something to use like, okay, I'm sitting down with them, let me put it on the table and I'm gonna walk through each of these steps, okay? It's something for you to look at beforehand and to use to prepare. First and foremost, I recommend that you take somebody with you. It's better to go in twos, and the scripture Luke 10:1-23 talks about Jesus sending the 72 out in pairs. And so we want to follow the biblical principle of going out in pairs. Now, sometimes that doesn't always happen. I've been on a couple gospel appointments where I've gone by myself, and it's okay. It just happened that way. I asked people to come with me. Nobody could go, and so I just went alone. It's better to at least go. You don't want to like reschedule. You want to take somebody with you though, if you can. And especially like you who have people that you already meet with, this is a great thing for you to take them to, because it's a way for them to learn how to share the gospel in a pre-existing environment. Like they already know that they're going to share the gospel versus, okay, I'm in my class and I'm going to try to start this conversation, but I don't know how, and it's my first time to share kind of thing. Does that make sense? Okay. So first things first, somebody on staff texts you, or somebody on like outreach or 402 crew texts you and says, hey, I have this connection card, or survey, will you please contact this person? And they send you a picture with their name and phone number. And it says something like, I want to learn more about Jesus or whatever. So I kind of gave a format for you to text, kind of read over that. And then if you've ever texted and it's different than that, maybe go ahead and raise your hand and tell us what you said.
I said several where I just said, hey, is this, or I just start and say, hey, is this Courtney? And then she'd say, yes, who's this? And I'm like, oh, this is Meghan Jarvis from the BSM. Because if I text them a long message, they would be like, they wouldn't respond. But then after they respond once, they feel obligated to respond a second time.
We should do that with freshmen.
Yeah, I just say, hey, is this so-and-so's number? And they're like, yeah, who's this? And you're like, I'm Meghan from the BSM, and I just go with that spiel.
Yeah, I think that's really brilliant.
Clever.
Yeah, because sometimes I don't get people don't respond back, and then I'm like texting them again like 2 days later, and
I don't do that every
bummer.
time, but I had
Yeah. So they respond and they say, yeah, I really do want to learn more about getting to know Jesus. I thought that was really interesting last night, or whatever they say. Sometimes they say yes. And then you say, can my friend, I set up like where we're gonna meet and stuff, and I usually say, can I bring my friend so and so with me, and I state their name. And I've already asked that friend if they could come, and so on and so forth. So don't meet at the BSM, right? Like everybody understands that we are not going to meet people at the BSM for discipleship or for gospel connection appointments, okay? Now, if it happens, you're like in the BSM and somebody wanders in and God gives you an opportunity to share the gospel, I'm not going to be like, get out, don't stay here. But don't bring them here. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So you set up the gospel appointment. One of the things that we I feel like are setting up here is we spend time praying for freshmen and we pray for our teams is prayer. And I think that one of the things that I often forget to do before I go to a gospel appointment is like douse it in prayer. I don't pray for the person, or I don't pray enough. And so one of the things I want to encourage you to do is set aside 30 minutes before your gospel appointment and spend time in prayer and reading scripture and reminding yourself of God's word and what it says about the gospel, so that way you're prepared for that gospel appointment. Okay, so this is one thing that I really want to hit on. Remember that you're sharing the gospel, not a method. And so what I mean by that is we talk a lot about the bridge. We use the bridge to share the gospel in a lot of things. There's a lot of other methods that you may choose to use. But one of the things I want to remind y'all of is that we are sharing the gospel, the thing that saved us from our wretchedness. It's not, I say the person that saved us from our wretchedness. We can't just make it into a method and go, okay, here you go. We need to remember that this is a part of our life. This is what changed our life. And so it's easy when you have a lot of gospel appointments, especially in the first 4 weeks of school, because that's when we do a lot of them, and I'm speaking from experience, so that's why I'm saying this, to go show up, do the bridge, and leave. And that's what you did. Instead of presenting and sharing the good news of Jesus Christ saving us from our idiocracies. And so I want to remind you all of that, and that's something I'm praying for myself to remember as this season of doing God's gospel appointments is intense. And for freshman team, that's going to be really intense because you're going to do a lot of them. Or you're going to do a lot of what's your relationship with Christ like, or a lot of different things like that. And so remembering that this isn't just something that we do, but this is something that has changed and shaped our lives. Yeah.
So, thinking about it just now kind of gave me an idea. If you're uncertain about how to really, how to actually share which method you want to use or to share the gospel, it might make it more personal and make it more real if you ask them, like, are you a visual learner? Are you a verbal processor? Something like that. And then from there you can be more, I don't know, real about it.
Yeah, you're meeting their need for what they may need for sharing the gospel. So like sometimes I say, well, it's easy for me to explain this in a picture. Or I ask them, do you learn better through pictures, or would it be easier if I explained it with just talking? And they're like, oh, I like pictures. Most people are like, I want a picture, because we live in a very visual society right now. But yeah, that's a great point, Daniel. Okay, so you're sitting across from the table from them, and you're like, this is slightly awkward because I've never met this person, I've only texted them. What are some things that you can do to make them comfortable?
Ask a question.
Like what? Like what questions?
Just like simple questions like you always start out with, like what's your name, what's your major, where are you from?
Yeah. So we ask lots of questions. What are some other questions that we can ask that aren't like invasive, like questions that they have to be vulnerable with, but that can help somebody become comfortable that aren't on this list? That's why I put the extra bullet points so we could kind of fill those in as we talk.
Ask them what they like to do.
Yeah.
Okay, ask them what they like to do. Who said, did somebody say hobbies?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, hobbies. Yeah, like birds. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you in a minute. I saw a scissor tail and there's a nest over there. Yeah.
With
I was like,
babies
I
in
thought
it,
of you.
I think like during
Sorry.
the 2 week and stuff, it might be really good to say, hey, like what have you enjoyed about the 2 weeks so far? Like what have you enjoyed, or like how do we like, hey, there's all this cool stuff on campus. Like have you been to any of it?
Yeah, I think that's actually really great because it's an opportunity to kind of hear how their week's going too.
Yeah.
You can kind of gauge where they're at emotionally through that.
I feel like a lot of times questions like that can bring out like almost like, oh my gosh, this is like what I don't like sometimes too, just because the way politics does their stuff.
Yeah.
It's like a way for them to be real.
Yeah.
And, like, give you those emotions without it being like these are really personal emotions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I like that, Jordan. Yeah.
For freshmen, it's like the chances are they're not going to be your major. So like I always like to ask just straight up, what classes are you taking? Because even if they're like a microbiology major or something, if they're taking bio 1, I've taken that class, and like the basic freshman classes are, and like there's nothing better than like when we get to talk about, oh yeah, I had that professor, oh yeah, like because that puts you in a like on their level, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it also, in a way, gives them maybe a sense of, wow, this person is going to understand what I'm going through. Because I remember when I talked to somebody about, they had a professor that I was going to have and asking them, well, what are they like? That's super helpful because then you're like, okay, I need to really do my homework, or I don't have to read the book, or, you know, things like that. And that helps freshmen because they've never done this before.
Or like if you're really good in a subject that they're taking, you can like help them possibly.
Yeah, I think that's great. Okay, so there's some questions that you can ask to transition the conversation, so if you want to flip it over. I did this as a quote. There's lots of other ways that we can transition, which is why I put some extra bullet points. You said you wanted to know more about Jesus at such and such event, or whatever you want to say. I was wondering what you already know about him. Or you could say, what do you like about the event, whatever, that they got the connection card, or like if it was 402, did you enjoy the first 402 this semester? And that's a good transition into, I noticed that this is what you said. Can we talk more about that kind of thing? Do y'all have any other ideas?
Man, how do you like? I like this, but how do you transition to that without saying, "Oh, you're wrong"? This is what the gospel actually is. When you're asking them, how do you know? Like, what do you know about Jesus?
Yeah, if they say something wrong,
Yeah.
like they're like, oh Jesus,
You could be like,
Ah,
can I
okay.
tell you what I believe, or like can I tell you what the Bible says right here?
Sometimes I say that's interesting.
Miss Debbie told me that she always says, I can see how you would see that.
Yeah, that's a great way to say
Like,
that.
oh, I never thought of it, but I can see how you would see
I
that.
think.
And then
something
she
else-
says, this is what I see.
There's no real easy way to say something without it coming across as a little condescending, because everything that y'all have said is kind of watering it down, and the way it sounds to me, it's just like, it still sounds like you're saying you're wrong, basically. It's just in a nicer way.
Right, and I think that's the better way to do that.
I think sometimes it's not so much we need to tell them that they're wrong, so much as, hey, okay, you say that. Why do you believe that?
Yeah.
And walking them through that. Because if they say, I believe this and this, okay, well, like, what's going on? Like, why do you believe that? If it's Christian things, they have to then go back to what scripture they know. And if they bring up something that's like, well, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, so I can make it through this semester by not studying, or whatever it may be, you can kind of say, that's really interesting. Have you ever looked at the context of this verse? You always ask questions, I think, because them having to explain it causes them to think, well, why do I believe this? And if they don't know the answer, which generally that's pretty common, people don't know why they believe what they believe.
Yeah.
It gives you the opportunity to say, man, you're saying you believe in the Bible. This is what the Bible says.
Yeah, can I show you why you believe that?
Yes.
Or, because sometimes they may not be wrong in what they believe. It just may be the way that they said what they
Yeah.
believe is odd.
Or they may not know how to articulate it. They've never had to. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who never had to say, I believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins, and that is why I can have a relationship with him.
Yeah. That's a good point, Daniel. Thank you, Connor. Okay, so you've kind of transitioned the conversation. You've shared the whatever way that you want to share the gospel with them, whether that's through your mouth or through showing them a picture. And so they have interacted with you, because one of the things that you want to make sure is that it's not you sitting there doing it to them and talking at them, but you having a conversation with them, kind of like Connor say, asking questions. So whenever you sit down and share, like when I use the bridge, I always ask questions throughout it, and I want to make sure that they're understanding it. If they're not, then I need to go back. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, and remember, we always have to ask a question at the end, like, would you like to receive Christ, or whatever. I wrote some down. What are some ways that you've asked somebody that?
I have a question real quick.
Mhm.
Is it better to kind of ask someone, like right off the bat after you've shared that, you understand this, so is this something that you want in your life? Or is it better to ask for like another time to meet up? Because like asking right there on the spot is, I don't know if that's too quick or you're moving it too fast, or if it's better to like wait and process it, or...
Yeah, good question. So we always want to give them an opportunity. They may be ready to receive Christ. If they're not ready, they're going to tell you. And that's the thing, is when you present it in a manner that's not confrontational or forceful, you're giving them an opportunity to say no. And so kind of go down, they respond with yes, but go down to no, B, it's under 7B. No, I'm not ready for this. Because that's something like, you can sense that. You're looking at somebody and you're like, okay. They're like, I'm not sure. And you can affirm that, and that sounds weird because you don't, but you want people to count the cost. This isn't like just some kind of like, I'm checking a box off, I'm going to heaven. Like, you want people to count the cost. And so saying, is there a specific reason you don't want this right now, is a way that you can kind of ask and gauge where they're at. If they just say, I'm not ready, or I don't want to give up this sin, or I'm not willing to commit to something right now, I want to kind of weigh my options, which somebody has said that to me before, then I have to be okay with that. And you have to be okay with that going into the meeting. You're not going to change somebody's heart. Does that answer your question, Daniel? Yeah. Okay. Because, and you can give them that option. If they're sitting there kind of like, and you can sense that they're like uncomfortable and they're not ready for this, you can say, hey man, like we can meet up another time to talk about this. If you feel like that's what you need to do. So, but I think it's important to always ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this will answer these two questions. 7. Jordan, did you read over it?
Yeah. I guess like how, and this almost kind of goes into like the how do I bump, but it's like I get like the yes, the whole like praying with them, having them like verbalize what they're doing and all that. But then like the last part is like then pray for them. But it's like how do you like you have this new do you give them information like okay this is how you read the Bible, this is how
what do you do right then?
Yeah, like what
Oh, perfect.
like right after all of that. Like, do you tell them, like, we're going to meet up in a couple days and talk about it to let them, like, process their decision or just, like, jump into it? Because I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm overwhelming people.
Okay, does anybody read through that? Does anybody have any questions or they want me to go over something specific that's left? Because I'm going to answer Jordan's question and all of the rest of it. But it's going to take a little bit longer.
I think somewhere I mess up when I go on these gospel appointments, especially like when I met up with Kelsey for the first time. Like she already had that relationship, and so I was just really confused on where to go next because she got it.
Right. Okay, so the question that Jordan asked, where to go after that?
Oh,
It's
okay,
this question right here. These
Yeah,
two
just
questions.
kind of like go along with each other.
Yeah. Does everybody understand that when they accept Christ, if you're meeting with them, they're yours now. They're your baby. Like, you birthed it, you raise it. If you're not going to birth it, if you're not going to raise it, then you need to put it up for adoption, and somebody needs to take the baby and like nurture it. Does that make sense? And you, and I talk about this in the connection appointments. Sorry, I said that really fast. When you're putting your baby Christian up for adoption, I was going to go with this analogy. You need to make sure that they get adopted. It's your responsibility, and you ask and you make connections until they have somebody that is meeting with them. I cannot tell you how many people we have almost lost because of that, because they weren't connected with somebody. And it's not a ton, but it's become more noticeable the more connection and gospel appointments we've had. Does that resound, and is that understandable? Okay. Any more questions? Can somebody give me a time check?
11:03.
Okay. Cool. So, what I'm going to talk to you about is not something I had planned, so I might ramble through it. And Megan, you can talk about this too. So we've been reading this book called T for T. It's training for trainers. So y'all are trainers, and we're going to train you to make more trainers. Okay? So one of the thoughts in that is when somebody becomes a new baby believer is that they immediately identify the people in their lives that they need to share the gospel with. So you're sitting there with them within the first hour, 2 hours that they become a believer, and they are writing down all the people that they need to share the gospel with. So, and hang on, I'm getting to that. So the reason behind that is, remember when you became a believer? Does anybody remember that time in their life? Okay, so I remember like wanting to tell people about Christ. And you may be like, oh, I'm kind of scared. But you had a passion for what had just changed your life. And so there's an immediacy right there. That's not a word. Immediately right then, you're like, I want to share. Like, or, and then we have people that are like, I don't know what to do with this. It's your job to help them feel comfortable with knowing that this is a good thing and they should share it with people.
Should this, when you say like people that need to share it, not only is it for people that need to hear the gospel, but should it also like be for people that they need to tell because those people could be a bad influence? Does that make sense? It's not a bad influence, but it's like, do they need to share the gospel with them as a way of like, hey, like these people who I've been running in this sin circle with, like I need to share with them because it makes it harder to run back to that sin. Does that make sense?
From my experience, like literally from my experience of sharing the gospel, the people who I would say had the most genuine conversions, like, to Christ, the first thing they did was count the cost and think of people to tell. Like, it is a natural, and counting the cost is part of that.
Yeah, okay.
Like, they'll go, crap, like, I have to cut this out and that out. And it almost talks himself out of the gospel. But I would say, like, she said, like, while you have them, I would even say, like, at maximum, the next day. Like, can we sit down after you think about this tonight and talk about this the next day and talk about what do you need to cut out and who do you need to tell?
And
I
would
it's already
only,
a natural, like, if the Holy Spirit, like, comes in them, it is a natural, like, immediate thing.
What do I?
Mhm.
Like, if it's not, then you should talk through the gospel again.
Yeah. What's the first
Like, I'm
thing?
serious.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that a baby does when they're born?
Go to them.
Cries. Right. They cry. They scream. What's the first thing we should do when we're born as a believer?
Scream.
We should scream the gospel to people. Like, we should tell people about it. It's the heartbeat of everything that we do. And so I know I can see some of y'all's faces going, no, I will not tell people to do this. This will scare them away. If this scares them away right then at their conversion, you need to talk to them about the gospel again, because it has not impacted their life.
Accurate.
And I know that sounds really harsh, but it's the truth. And I'm getting very passionate, so I will calm down.
Statistically, we should get more no's than yeses. People should have, like part of this, number 7 is, the first one is share about the cost of following Jesus. Jesus talked more people out of following him than anything. Like, he was like, oh, really? Like, sorry. Like, if you can't leave your dad, like, and not go to his funeral, then you can't follow me. Like, if you don't hate yourself, then you can't love me. Like, if you don't do this, like, you can read all through it. Like, it was like, if he was trying to convince people to just, like, sign the deal, then he would have done it. But it was, like, really commitment.
We're going to see
He
more.
read the fine print to them.
You know, Clayton was talking about multiplication last night. That's going to happen more when people realize the impact of what God has done in their life and share it with others. It's not going to happen if we coddle them to that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So having them list, I'm going to just say 5. The book that we're reading is like everyone. I'm going to say 5. Okay, so either list, list everyone that they need to share that gospel with.
And does this include too, like, list these people in your life that they need to know that this is a step that you've taken?
Yeah.
Maybe not even like lost people.
This
that
would
you
be
share
Yeah,
with them.
this would be that.
So
But that's
like
not the only thing.
your maid or whoever that is.
Yeah. And then
You're still in it.
they need to identify 5.
That's what I would say, even if you said, I think on this, but let's meet tomorrow.
5 people between
Again.
the day that they come to know Christ and the next time y'all meet that they share the gospel with. Trenton, what are you gonna say?
This is like
Also, whenever they share that with the people, with the lost people, it already gives them that accountability to not go back to that stuff too. Or I was thinking,
Yeah, no.
like whenever they are like that and they go to those people that are lost and their friends and stuff, then they can't
Turn back.
Right.
There's a separation
Right.
now. There's a difference.
Part of
Jordan.
this is like sorry, I just can't think like all these different new Christians that you talk to and they're like terrified of sharing the gospel because like, and I feel like as soon as they get into the culture and they see like, oh my gosh, like I have so much to catch up, I have so much, it's really intimidating. But for them to like share the gospel with 5 people in a week before they realize how like almost not uncommon it is, but you know what I mean, before they realize before they have a chance to psych themselves out about it.
Yep.
That would like make such a huge difference.
Yep.
Well, also, like, part of the way we've, like, this book said this, so I'm not spouting off.
She's speaking from the book that we read.
Like, the culture that we've created is that people have to mature before they can serve, but the Bible clearly states, like, people mature by serving. So when we put people to work, they mature.
Yeah.
Like usually, but like in the church, we're like, you're not mature,
So you can't serve
you
yet.
can't serve yet.
Yeah.
And that's not like how the Bible is at all.
With all these people that they need, like listing everyone they need to share the gospel with, and then the 5 people that they need to before you meet next.
Like it's the
is
top.
it-
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what is it? Do we? You gotta phrase this. Like if they need someone to go along with them, like you always
You
talk
be
about.
that person.
Well, yeah, but like I actually think no, I know the answer. I was gonna say, do we? If we cannot do that, do we connect them with other people to go along with them? But that would just be verbally processing. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think these are people they already know. We go in twos because they're people we don't know. If you like, let's say, okay, like my cousins, for example, I'm not gonna take Meghan Jarvis with me to go share the gospel with my cousin. I already have a deep, intimate relationship with him. For me to go and talk to him, that's different than for me to go meet a random stranger on the street and have a conversation with them. Because Jesus sends them out, but we see Jesus interact with individuals all the time. Like it's not a hard and fast, you always have to go in twos. We're just talking about when we send out, that's why we're doing that, because that's the model we're modeling.
I also think that if you, Connor, shared the gospel with someone, they became a Christian, and then they took you, they would just depend on you to share the gospel.
Yeah.
And it would be all about Connor and not about how the fact that Jesus is the same Jesus that saved you and that person, like, they can share the gospel.
Which is my.
Yeah. I think that almost handicaps them.
Yeah.
If we are, like, babying them.
Yeah, that happened a lot.
Right there.
Or that happened once when we were in China for sure. Was the most genuine relationship that this one guy had. He accepted Christ, and then like within the next couple of days, he went out to a farm and he shared the gospel to his friends and to everybody that was there. And so it was like the most genuine thing I've ever seen. And he didn't have any training whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like it was just he heard us and he said, "I have this relationship now, and I love him, and he loves me," and it kind of bridged from there.
Yeah.
And so that's true. The most genuine relationships come from seeing that conviction and seeing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, if this is kind of off, but like if the relationship with Christ is not genuine, is it
Real.
is the relationship with Christ? That's why I'm like, if you can obviously see their hindrance, then you need to go back and explain the meaning of the gospel. Even if they get it, they just need to get it more. Like we need to remind ourselves of the gospel every day.
Every day,
'cause we don't fully understand it. So
Okay, so Jordan, that's one part to answering your question. Another is like, you can share with them like about prayer. You should share with them about prayer, about reading God's word, getting them a Bible if they don't have one, kind of sharing with them about your walk with Christ, because then they're gonna see the realness of it. Not that we need to give that to them, that's already happened in their life. Another thing is Morgan's going to talk about discipleship, and Becca is talking about handling baby believers. So you're going to get to experience that when you go over to that segment. But
Something I want to say is like right after they accept Christ,
Mhm.
don't like throw so much at them, especially if they've like never grown up at the church, that they like get super overwhelmed. Because like if like for me, if Jordan started sharing with me like the Navigator's Lid and all this, like I would have been like,
don't do that. I'm saying share like prayer.
Later.
Talk about prayer. You know, that's like and say like what Meghan said. This is me visualizing Christ next to me or whatever. It's not, this is what the Bible says about prayer, reading about that.
yeah,
Is that kind of what you mean?
yeah.
Okay.
Don't like throw a lot at them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So we are going to go to our next rotation or lunch.
no, we're going to the next rotation.
Next rotation. Okay. Y'all are in very best cabin. Y'all are easy because y'all are 1, 2, 3. So. Guys, thanks for the fun conversation.
3, 2.
Oh, hang on. Yeah. So I have one for connection appointments. It's kind of similar. And I'm also going to give y'all these. Will you pass these around? And will you pass these around, Justin? I'm not even finished.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that a blue book by chance? Like a solid blue? No? Oh, there's another one similar.
There is a blue book. It is blue.
It is.
Yeah, it's blue.
Yeah, but it's not solid blue.
Well, not solid blue, but it does have like shadow images of people in the back too.
Yes.
Or like,
Yeah.
oh
We
yeah,
like
that's
all
really
sat next to each other.
You read it?
Bio one.
so
we're on
not
the
all
same
of it.
team now.
Yeah, we're moving.
Oh my goodness, you're right.
I didn't even think about that until they said bio one. I was like, wait a second.
Where's mine? Oh, it's right here.
Oh shit, oh my god.
Silly.
Yeah, all.
It was one of my hallmates, and then
Yeah,
yeah.
Jordan,
her sister.
I like your glasses. I like your glasses.
That your homies. Her sister.
Yeah, 5 and 6. So like sit in, don't all just sit at one table. There's
You have
11-ish. Just
I'm like,
wait,
how did you know we have
is that
11?
how many? Because I
No, Dustin is,
Why don't y'all all sit at one table then? There's not as many of y'all as.
no, Dustin's coming. We will have
Is there someone
we
sitting
will
in
have to
between?
sit at 2 tables.
Between you?
No, Gary.
Are you going to be teaching up here on this?
Can you pass this out? Can you pass this out? Can you pass
You're on
this
for
out?
Morgan.
Do I have time to get more coffee?
Yes, hurry.
Are these the same thing? No. Okay.
Do we get to keep these?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all. You're also very kind. Somebody's sitting next to you, sir.
Mila, that's for you.
Who's sitting next to Ayla? Sarah.
Sorry.
Copy. So we have 3 things.
Yes. I believe so.
Yes. You should have 3
Connection,
things.
appointment,
Connection,
gospel,
gospel,
and then
Yes.
Who's sitting right here?
Siler. Thank you.
Lisa, will you be my time person? Will you let me know when we have 10 minutes left? Which of everything?
10 minutes or 5?
10. You want me to do 10? Is everybody here?
So we're missing Sarah.
Okay. And they're where?
Where is she?
Yeah, I don't know.
She's probably in the restroom.
Oh, okay. You said she's in there chatting.
No, I said we were chatting.
Oh.
I said sorry, we're chatting.
Okay.
Yeah, she's probably peeing.
Okay. Well, go ahead and get started. So this session is about gospel appointments and connection appointments. Raise your hand if you've ever done a gospel appointment.
I don't really know what that means.
Okay, then you haven't done one. Raise your hand if you have done a connection appointment. Okay, cool. So a gospel appointment is where somebody has contacted you, probably on staff, and said, hey, this person indicated that they want to know more about following Christ. And you say, okay, great. And so you set up a time to meet with that person, and that's the intention of when your intention in meeting with them is sharing the gospel, and they know that, and you know that. Okay, so knowing this, what do you want to get out of this session?
How to have a gospel appointment.
Okay.
How to be able to do them effectively.
Ooh, this.
And actually mean it. Like, if that makes sense.
I don't know if I did that right. Sam?
What's a good way to like what the text message should look like?
Okay.
Without it sounding wrong.
Mm-hmm. What else? just giving y'all a chance to.
If we think of him later, can we say him?
You can ask, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, pull out your gospel appointment sheet, and we're just gonna go through this. This is something to use for you as a tool, and this is also something for if you meet with people or are going to meet with people in the future, you can use this as a tool to train them on how to do this. So not only are you learning this for yourself, but you're also learning this to teach others. So take notes accordingly. Okay, so one, I said this paper is a tool, so when you sit down with somebody at a gospel appointment, you are not going to put this on the table and go, okay, step one, okay? You're going to look at this and review this before you start your gospel appointment. Before you may even set the gospel appointment up, you'll use this. I recommend that you go out 2 by 2. That's what it says in Luke 10. It talks about sending out the 72 in pairs, and so we send people out in twos. Now, sometimes you try to reach out to people and nobody can come with you, and so you go by yourself, and that's okay. Just make sure you let people know and that they're praying for you as you go. And if you've never done one, don't go alone. Go with somebody who's had experience. So raise your hand if you've never done a gospel appointment. Okay, so the people that raised their hand in this room, those are the people you can ask to go with you because they've had experience. I recommend that the first one that you do, you go with somebody that has had an experience. Even if you're the one doing it, you're going with somebody who can help you if you need help. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so Sam, we're gonna answer your question first.
Yeah, I just
No, you're good. I was like, yay, great, this paper is effective. So, there's 2 ways that you could do a text. One is you can just text them their name and say, hey, is this John Doe? And they'll say, yeah, this is John Doe. And you'll say, my name is, and then you can do this. It's in A, and it says, hello, my name is Meg, and you'll exit out the, my name is blah, 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 or hello, their name is. I'm sorry, I just messed that up. Let me start over, rewind. Hello, John Doe. My name is Meg from the BSM. I saw that you filled out a connection card at 402. You said that you would like to know more about Jesus. I would love to get together and talk to you more about that. When is a good day and time for you? This is how I always do it. One says who you are. 2, it says who you're with. And 3, it reminds them that they went to that event. Okay? Because sometimes you don't want to be like, I got this card, and they're like, I don't know, I filled out 50 cards this week. And you're like, oh, okay. So, when they respond, if they respond, and hopefully they do, pray that they do. That's what I do. I pray that they would respond because sometimes they forget that they filled something out. You'll say, okay, great, and you'll set up a time to meet, and then you'll say, can I bring my friend so-and-so along? And usually they say yes. If they say no, it's okay. It's okay for them to say no. That might be out of their comfort zone. So then you'll go alone and you'll let people know that you're going so they can pray for you. Does that fully answer your question, Sam? Yes. Sarah?
Is it okay to kind of explain why you bring your friend? Say, like, there's somebody who would like to get to know you, too. Because if somebody's texting me and saying, like, hey, I just want to bring my friend along, and that's all they said, that would kind of creep me out.
Sure.
So is it okay to kind of explain
Yeah.
why?
This is not an exact thing. You can word it however you'd like.
I was gonna say,
I
I
always
remember
say my friend wanted to hang out with me and already had plans, so could they come along? Because I don't because most of the time they don't know what's going to happen there, and you'll sometimes scare them away that way.
I was gonna say, I forgot if it was, I think it was you and Morgan who did my gospel appointment, and I remember whoever was like, I know Morgan was there.
I don't remember,
it was you too.
so I'm sorry.
But no, it's fine. And I'm saying, like, they're like, can I bring my friend, whichever one, like, bring my friend along? And in my head I was like, I guess. Like, this is weird, but okay.
Okay, yeah. So maybe saying my friends so-and-so would love to get to know you too. Is it okay if I bring them along? Or however you want to word it, Sarah. That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. I never think about that, making people feel uncomfortable. I don't know why I don't ever think about that. So you set up the gospel appointment. You want to prepare by praying, and you want to prepare by